Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Mary Grace, and we are live here on Mary Grace TV. This is an exciting show. It's one that I've been trying to pull together for quite some time. Between my schedule and my guest schedule, we finally worked it out. And I'm very excited to be able to bring you something that I think is going to be of interest to a lot of my listeners. Many of you are in a position in life where you're thinking about the next steps, or you have family members who are. And so I have with me today Hal Cranmer. He is the owner, he and his wife, they own assisted living facilities in Arizona. And before you think I've lost my mind, just hear me out, because you know how I feel about those places. And yet here I am featuring somebody who owns several facilities in Arizona. And there's a reason that I'm bringing him on the show. And you are going to want to tag people. You're going to want to share this. You're going to want to make sure that you let people know about this show, because Hal is doing something very different. And that is that he is actually helping people get better in assisted living. And so he is revolutionizing this field. And I think you're going to want to hear this. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Mary. And thanks for sticking with me and finding a time that worked for both of us finally.
That's the way it is. So it's really a pleasure to have you here. I want to give the backstory of how I found you so that my listeners can have some context, because anyone who's been listening to me for a long time knows that I have very strong feelings about any type of facility that has any type of medical connotation, and especially when it comes to the elderly, because I have been so involved with the care of my stepdad, but then previously with my mom when she was with us here on Earth. And I have not been a big fan of these systems because of the way that they treat people, and because of neglect and serious issues. And I think that my listeners probably lean toward that bias as well. And a lot of my listeners are probably thinking that they want to make some transitions in life, some of them, but they're not sure how they're going to do that because they're frankly afraid. I came across your Twitter feed, and you were posting about some things that you were doing with residents at your facilities, which are called a paradise for parents, a paradise for parents. And you were giving these testimonials about people who are coming in and getting healthier, some of them coming in to memory care and then graduating from memory care and going back home, which you almost never hear about. And also people that were getting metabolically healthier by changes in diet and lifestyle. Again, when you think of a long-term care facility or a assisted living facility, you basically picture starchy foods, fake frankenfoods that are full of sugar and corn syrup, so-called protein drinks and things like that. And you picture people who are sort of in a rapid decline. And from what I see, I was so intrigued because your residents in your facilities are trending in the opposite direction. So that's the backstory, everybody. That's why we're here today, because I was so intrigued by what Hal is talking about. And you can follow him on X. It's just his name, Hal Cranmer. And but can you give us a little history about how you came into this space? You started out going to college, then you went into the Air Force. How did you go from that to owning assisted living facilities that have a very specific focus?
Yeah, it's a long journey. I went to the Air Force Academy actually.
Okay.
And then graduated, and like most of the people there wanted to become a pilot. So I went to flight school in Arizona at the old Williams Air Force Base, which is now a sort of regional airport. So flew in the Air Force, mostly flew C-130s for the Air Force Special Operations Command. I got to see some of the worst places on Earth on a regular basis. And got out of that when I came home from a deployment, picked up my 2-year-old daughter, and she didn't recognize me and started screaming. So I thought, no, I don't want to watch my daughter grow up at that time through VCR tapes. So I'm going to get out. And so I did what every pilot does in the Air Force that gets out pretty much, joined an airline. And I got
Mm-hmm.
at what was known as US Air way back in the day.
Yep.
Flew with them for about 3 years. And then 9/11 happened. And I, along with about half the airline pilots in America, lost our jobs after 9/11. So no other airline were hiring at the time because they were all laying people off, and it's a union shop, so they got to hire back all their pilots before they look at new people. So I was like, oh, I guess my flying career's over. So I just looked around the country, tried to find a job. Had a sister-in-law pull some favors at a manufacturing company she worked for, and got me in manufacturing to support my family. So I ended up being in manufacturing for 20 years or so. And while I was in mostly in Minnesota, where my wife's from and her family. And then while I was there, I sort of got into the flipping houses and rehabbing houses to turn into rental properties, mostly around the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. And I talked to another investor, and he said, "Hey, you should check out assisted living. Um, the the residents are a lot calmer. They don't have keg parties. They don't kick in your doors, and the cash flow is a whole lot better." So it was like great. And my wife and I had always wanted to move back
Yeah.
to Arizona. We loved it. She was dating me when I was going through flight school, and we always wanted to move back here. So I took a class in assisted living down here in Phoenix, and liked what I heard. And the guy who taught the class had a realtor who said, I got some for sale. And so we talked about it, prayed about it a little, and decided to make the leap and came down to Arizona. Um, and so that's how I kind of got into it. I looked at it as real estate investment. And then once I got into it, I was like you. I was like, oh my God, what is it? What are these places doing to people?
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't just warehouse these people. They're wonderful people. They've got incredible stories and wonderful families. And I think everyone kind of thinks of this as, okay, this is the last stop, and we got to do what they say. And so I started just looking on my own. What can we do? How can we make people healthier? Just life doesn't. And some of these people are like late 60s, early 70s. I'm like, you should live. The average life expectancy is in the 80s. Let's get to that at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
I started looking around, and I just read a few books, and did my own research on the internet. And so the first thing I did is I've always been into exercise, so I hired a trainer to exercise them. And then I started looking, okay, it looks like diet might help. So I just thought, let's just cut out sweets and reduce those. And I started seeing people actually just doing that much do better. And so I thought, okay, we can do
Just
better.
cutting out the carbs.
Just cutting out the carbs,
Yeah.
starting with cutting out the sugar, and just doing what my mom told me: eat your vegetables, eat your meat. Don't eat
Yeah.
a lot of processed crap. Don't eat sugar. Don't give them ice cream after every meal. So even that helped. So then I researched it more. I started getting into the vegan phase because that's all the popular thing a couple years ago.
Hmm.
And that didn't work at all. My residents were like, I'm not eating a salad for breakfast. And I didn't see much improvement with it. So I went back to the drawing board and just had them eat healthy. And then I picked up a piece of exercise equipment called an X3 that I started using. And the guy who invented it was a huge fan of the carnivore diet. And he was a big strapping, muscular guy. So I'm like, well, that's really weird, but I'll try it. And I tried it, and I'm like, man, I feel incredible eating this way. And
That's really interesting. Okay.
learned more about the keto diet. We just started doing that, and
Mhm.
it just snowballed from there.
And so what's the time frame here? Like how quickly did all of this come about? I mean, it is a little shocking when you see the way that people are doing in assisted living facilities. So from the time that you started running the facilities and having this revelation about what was going on and then started changing, like what was the time frame of this?
Okay, so I bought my first home in 2015, and then I bought
Okay.
4 more in 2016. I'd say the first probably 2.5 years, I was just learning how to run these. I was happy to fill them. I
Mhm,
was
mhm.
taking advice from my caregivers, taking people out to lunch, trying to learn this business, trying to figure it all out. I wasn't doing much of the diet or anything. I just wanted to get people in my homes and get the cash, be able to cover my expenses, kind of thing. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
and then, so once I established that, I'd say it's more like 2018, 19. We're starting to get into eating healthy. Um,
Mhm.
Maybe I know it was before COVID that we did the vegan thing. That only lasted for a couple months. And
Okay.
then, um, and then during COVID, I started doing the ketogenic stuff and getting more.
Yeah.
The carnivore things really happened probably in the last, since about 2022. Um, it's really hard to convince a lot of families, although it's getting easier. The word's getting out that your mom's just going to eat meat and fish and and eggs. So that I
No,
still have only a small population that do carnivore, but almost everyone else does keto.
and I it's interesting because, it seems radical and you're dealing with an older population. And I before we went on air, I was talking about my situation here with my dad, who's almost 87, and he has type 2 diabetes. And so part of the conversation that I had with him about switching from higher carbs and sugars to basically a ketovore diet, um, it had to do with the benefits, the potential benefits from changing, and addressing some of the physical concerns that he was having as a type 2 diabetic, not to mention the weight loss, the potential weight loss. And so that's kind of how I got him on board. But what's what's your shtick? Like, how do you convince people who are coming into an assisted living facility, especially if they're looking at memory care? How do you talk to them about this? You did say that sometimes it's harder for the families to come on board, but like, what is it like for potential residents, and what's the conversation look like when you say, "Hey, we're a little different here. We're not doing pudding. We're doing meat." Unless it's meat pudding, unless it's Bella's
Meat
egg
pudding.
pudding, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
At first, it was very hard, and I still have those battles.
Okay.
So one of the biggest selling points, well, now as I'm getting more publicity that I'm doing this, it's
Mhm.
more people call me specifically for that. But
Interesting.
when I first started, um, what I was trying to just you know cut it back and just bring it back slowly with the existing residents. I send them emails periodically, the
Mhm.
families, here's what we're doing. So I actually, after one of my podcasts, Maria Emmerich, who's a great keto cook and wrote a whole bunch of cookbooks, reached out to me, and she and I did a little video of why this is so beneficial. And I sent that video, like a Zoom video, to my
Mhm.
residents. Um, as for new people coming in, one of my biggest selling points is I say, well, why don't you come over to the house and we'll give you a tour and explain everything we do. And then they come in and they see everyone walking around and talking and interacting. when you go to other assisted living homes, people are laying on the couch and watching TV and, comatose and need, you know, Hoyer lifts to get them up and into bed. And it's just very depressing. Our house looks like a party kind of thing, like more like roommates
Mhm.
living together than an assisted living home. So even
Right.
if the dementia's there, they're physically doing really well. So even the Department of Health, when they come in and do our annual surveys and audits, it's like, I can't believe how healthy residents are. So you can see it right away. And then that picture leads into, well, here's what we're doing to make them that way. And I
Yeah.
point to, that lady came to us on hospice and she's walking around now and helping us in the kitchen. Or that gentleman, was bedbound when he came to us and now he's in a wheelchair. We're hoping to get him walking here soon. Those kind of things. We're trying to make progress. And I tell them up front, look, if you want your mom loves her cake and cookies and ice cream, and that's everything to her in life, and she wants to do that, wonderful. There's 1,000 other assisted living facilities in the Phoenix area. Go to any of them. Don't waste your time with me. But if she
Hmm.
wants to get better, excuse me, sorry, my both computer's about to die.
Oh,
Go with, I just plugged it in. So go with them.
okay.
And most of them are, they're like, well, let's try it and see. And
Yeah.
with people like Maria Emmerich, there's an awful lot of keto recipes that they don't even know they're eating low carb meals. So you don't necessarily have to just say you're going to have hamburger for breakfast, steak for lunch,
Yeah.
salmon for dinner every day. You're going to have different varieties, and we can make lasagna that is keto or carnivore, and it's still lasagna. It looks like lasagna. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the key, right? Is the variety and the palatability.
right,
Especially, I think as people get older, their taste buds are maybe less sensitive. And so, uh, you spoke about Maria Emmerich. Some of my listeners may not know who she is. She has a YouTube channel. She's on Instagram. She's very active. Is she a dietitian or is she a carnivore influencer who happens to be really good at recipes? Because you consulted with her, right? I mean, she's
right.
helping you to develop these dietary protocols for your homes, right?
Yeah, I don't know if she has all those credentials after her name, but
Okay.
she should be a dietitian if she's not. She does extensive
Yeah.
research and she has a training program. In fact, we hired one of her certified health coaches to come into our home, educate our caregivers, teach our cooks how to um, make these really good meals, what works for people, what doesn't,
Mhm.
specifically for things like obesity, diabetes, those kind of
Right.
conditions where keto is great, but if they're very overweight, you don't necessarily want to feed them a lot of fat. You got to limit the fat as well as the carbs, things like that. So, but she has a certification program. She and her husband
Mhm.
extensively research this stuff and have
Yeah,
all kinds of stuff to
I've
help.
seen some of her videos. She does a lot online. Um, so I have a couple of questions. I do wanna hear some testimonials because I think that the testimonials that I've seen on your X account, they're very encouraging, and again, I think for my listeners who are either dealing with elderly parents or thinking about the possibility of what they're gonna do at some point, a lot I don't know. Some people really want to be in a situation where they're not responsible for taking care of a home and a property and things like that. They really want to downsize. So this could be something that they're looking at. But I wanted to ask about your staff. Whenever I've been in any of these facilities, it's been challenging. I'm trying to be nice because it's around here where I am, it's very hard to find help. And I wanted to know what has been your experience with getting the buy-in from your staff? And have you seen a spillover effect in their health? In other words, I kind of picture really unhealthy people who are working in these facilities, and it sounds like you may have a different setup.
Um, yeah, I've been very blessed with good staff. They A lot of them have stuck with me for a long time.
Mhm.
I really consider this, without my staff, I don't have a business. So
Right.
I treat them like gold. They're like family. In fact, some of them I'm actually working with an immigration attorney to sponsor and bring some of their family members here from overseas.
Okay.
It would take a lot longer if they just did it their naturalization route, and I'm
Mhm.
footing the bill for that. So um, I really, when I get a good one, I do everything I can to hold on to them. It is challenging. There's always 80% of my staff's been with me for years, but the 20% is where I get the turnover. It's not necessarily they don't want to work for me. It could be, they've got a family member who's, not doing well in another part of the country or another part of the world. They could have, they want to go back to school. They got married. I had a
Mhm.
wonderful young lady that was a staff member that was just an incredible caregiver, but she's 23 or 24. And because she's so good, she's like, I got ambition, and caregiving's not the route to the top that I want to pursue. She got a wonderful regular office job, and I wished her the best. I can't compete with that. So,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. So, in terms of the buy-in of the staff, um, some buy-in quicker than others. Um,
Mhm.
I have had one of my cooks has lost 37 pounds changing to this diet,
Yeah.
and she's currently paying my health coach, or they're setting up a program for her to pay her to work on losing the remaining pounds she wants to lose. I have
Wow.
another lady who's pre-diabetic, and she's kind of normal now. So it has spilled off on my staff, um, and they see the improvement because as the residents improve, their job gets easier too. They don't have to lift these people out of bed. They don't have to use the Hoyer lift. They don't have to, some of them get more continence, so they don't have to clean up as much. So they've got an interest as well. And I try to, if we have someone go home, or we get people come to us because of what we're doing, I try to reward them financially for that, because to me, they're the ones implementing the program, and they're the ones making me look good. So they should
That's great.
share in
Yeah.
the benefits of that.
So there's an incentive, incentivizing, which is awesome. I think that's great. I mean, because, in regular sort of long assisted living facilities, it really seems like it's just a place where people, the staff and residents, are just biding time, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a real ambition to be a caregiver. Although I think that what you're doing is great, because people have, it's a gift to be able to be a caregiver like that. And if they have the incentive and the reward for doing it, the seeing the people get better is a reward in itself, but people do have to thrive and make a living, and to be able to have ambition. So that's fantastic that you're doing that. I mean, the whole model of what you're doing to me is really, it's an example to me of what we would call local action having a national impact. And what I mean by that is that you have taken a model that is known nationwide, and in some cases worldwide, for just being an awful, awful option for most people. And you've turned it around to something that I think that anyone could aspire to. Anybody who owns a facility like this, but then it's also having a ripple effect, hopefully on family members and also on your staff and on their families. And to me, that is one of the most impactful things that somebody can do in a community. Creating the jobs, creating the space where people can thrive and actually get healthier, and where they can go into their old age with hope rather than just an expectation of a slow or even rapid decline. To me, it's amazing. I mean, if I were in a position where I had to put my dad in a facility, I would want to have something like that here in Virginia. Either that or we'd move to Arizona.
Yeah.
And thankfully I'm here with him, and we're at the point where it's fine. It works for us. Um, but I know that a lot of people are in a position where it's not working for them and that they need to have options and better solutions. And you're providing that. So it's very exciting to me. And I want to hear a couple of stories if you can. You actually put a story up on your X account today about somebody who had an improvement in their dementia test, which is kind of unheard of, right? It's like
Pretty
once
much.
people get that diagnosis,
It's a
it's
one-way
like
street.
it's like the kiss of death.
Hmm.
And yet you have a resident who is improving and going the opposite direction. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the dementia stuff I don't do on my own. It's complicated. So
Okay.
I there's a doctor out there, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's done this with a lot of people, and he does. To me, he should have the Nobel Prize. But he came up with a protocol that if it doesn't reverse it, it greatly mitigates it. It's like any medical procedure. The earlier you catch it, the better your chances are, and everything. And so I looked at his protocol, and I hired a company that is certified in his protocol, called A Mind for All Seasons. They're in Idaho. We do everything virtually with them. And we do a ton of blood work when the person arrives, or even before they arrive. When someone calls me and says, I want my mom or dad moving into your place, they have dementia, I tell them, we'll call A Mind for All Seasons, let them evaluate it. They're clinicians, not me, and they can tell you what our chances of helping you are.
Mhm.
And so they'll pull 15 vials of blood usually from a prospective resident, and then they come up with a report that's it's a long one. It's like 40, 50 pages long. And
Wow.
it has all these markers, because what Dr. Dale Bredesen says is dementia is caused by 35 to 40 different factors. And
Okay.
the contribution, you might have 16 of them, you might have 23 of them, you might have 5 of them. But that combination of these factors is causing your dementia. We need to optimize all of those. You can't take a pill and get one of them. It equates it to like a leaky roof. If you have 36 holes, you patch one of them, it doesn't really help. So we test everything and then figure out what to help. So we've done this with 7 or 8 people.
Okay.
Um, we've had varying degrees of success. A lot of it depends on how far along the dementia road they are. We had a lady who was 95 and on hospice, and family was very eager, and I had them call mine for all seasons. They were like, just make your mom comfortable. We're not going to be able to do anything. She'd had
Mhm.
it for 15 years or 17 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's too late. Um, so, but we still fed her the diet, and she still improved physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so we get these things. Um, there's a bunch of stuff that we do no matter who it is or what their blood work comes back with. We have red light therapy we do with them. We have saunas in the home. We do the exercise. We do the diet, all that kind of stuff. Those don't really change. We've got a place near us that does hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We do some of that,
Mm.
depending on the family willingness and financial commitment, because a lot of this doesn't have insurance. All the other therapies that are in my home, I just include in the price of the home. Um,
Okay.
and then, so our superstar one, we had a lady come in, spent about, I think, 6 or 7 months with us, or 6 or 7 months on the protocol. It might have been a month or two before she came to us working with a Mind for All Season. And she went from one of those MOCA scores, like you saw on Twitter this morning, of 15 to 26, like in the normal range of, like,
Wow.
completely
Yeah.
normal to the point of she moved back home to Washington State, lives in her own apartment now, and she flew down for a Maria Emmert cooking class in Phoenix that I took all my cooks to, and she came to it
Yeah.
as well. If you see on
Wow.
Maria's feed, you'll see a picture of her and Maria together. She loves Maria. She embraced the whole ketogenic thing,
Mhm.
and she makes that for herself at home, exercises on her own now, and
Wow.
is doing that was our huge success story. The one you saw last night is a lady that came to us about 2 or 3 months ago. She's like the first one. She's exercising all the time. I put some videos of me exercising with her on Twitter.
Mhm.
Um, she's totally embracing this, working really hard at it too, and we're seeing those improvements as well. She'd been with the Mind for All Seasons for I think 2 or 3 months before she came to us as well.
Okay.
Um, I have another guy who came to us in a wheelchair. He had Parkinson's and dementia. His head was like permanently 90 degrees to his body.
Yeah.
He's standing straight up now. He's starting to say words. He's starting to write. It's slower, but you can see improvement. I take him on walks around the block now.
Mhm.
Um,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
we're seeing lots of good things, especially memory. We have another lady who's not on the protocol, but she's still eating very healthy and exercising a bunch. And my caregivers are like, she's starting to remember our names. So, which she didn't do when she first came to us. So, we're
Wow.
seeing some really good things. And then we're also seeing, just people, we're seeing blood sugars go way down, people getting off their diabetes medicine. Um, we're seeing people get out of wheelchairs and start walking again. We've
It's
taken
amazing.
some obese people. We had a lady who came to us weighing 550 pounds. We put her on a pretty strict carnivore diet, and she moved out to an independent living weighing 320 pounds. So
So
in 9 months, we were doing fasting and carnivore. It was pretty hardcore, uh,
yeah.
but it worked. So
Amazing.
yeah, and we've just had a 460-pound lady move in that is embracing this carnivore thing. My health coach and I are meeting with her tomorrow to see how things are going and the weigh her. So she's only been with us a couple of weeks, but she's already saying her constant pain is going away. So her pain medicine is getting rapidly diminished. And like you, I'd love to get everyone off medications as much as I could.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I've been interacting with a lot of people lately who are embracing the carnivore lifestyle. And and a lot of them are actually doing high fat, middle or high protein, just close to like zero carb. I think technically carnivore is zero carb. And then
Mhm.
there's different degrees of fat depending on the situation. I think people with a lot of autoimmune conditions and also like MS, Parkinson's, they benefit from higher fat, from what I'm understanding. But the neurological types of things. But my understanding is that the myelin sheath around the nerves actually is restored, I think, from the
Mhm.
healthy animal fats, but then
Yep.
also that there is regrowth of nerves that have been thought to be dead for quite some time.
Mhm.
And then, of course, there's a drastic reduction in inflammation, which would explain why people who have been in constant pain, especially with things like peripheral neuropathy and things like that, that they would see an end or a strong decrease of that. It's amazing. It really is, and it's because of diet.
Yeah.
And, of course, we as a nation have had quite a setback because of the way that people have been eating and what's in the food. It's hard to buy commercially processed food anywhere in America that doesn't have added sugars and hidden sugars, right?
Mhm.
So, and these things are contributing greatly to inflammation, not to mention the seed oils. That's something we haven't talked about, but
Yep.
it's so fascinating, and it's like I said, it's really encouraging. If anybody who's listening to this, if you're on Facebook, I do want you to tag people and share it. For some reason, Facebook has decided that they don't really want to promote my lives much anymore. So we'll get a ton of interaction on replay. That's the way things are working these days. But please tag people. Please share it with others. Let them know that this was happening. And I understand, I realize that not everybody's in Arizona. I get that. But a lot of people actually move to Arizona for retirement and for assisted living life choices. And so this is another reason I think that you settled there, but also why I wanted to feature you on the show, just so that people know that this option exists and for themselves, for their family members it may be worth looking into. And I want to be clear about something too. I have a lot of affiliations that I talk about here on the show. This is not one of them. So I am doing this just because um, I really want people to know that this exists. I also want to give a call to action for my listeners who are in the investment space, who are in the real estate space, who may be in the healthcare space, who are looking for some alternatives and who are looking for investments because, God may be calling you in your state to take up the mantle to do something like what Hal is doing. And that is something you may be inspired right now to be thinking, you know what? I want to take this and run with it in Florida or wherever you are, whatever state you're in. We have a lot of entrepreneurs here. And this is an entrepreneurial venture that is actually doing the opposite of what most assisted living facilities do. And so that's the reason that I really wanted to have you on, is to give people hope and also to challenge my entrepreneurs out there to look at this as a really viable option that would help a lot of people and a lot of families. Um, do you franchise? Have you set that up yet?
I've had people ask me that.
Yeah,
It's finding caregivers that's the challenge.
yeah,
There's real estate all over the place. The caregivers are challenging. But
yeah.
just to piggyback on what you're saying, for the entrepreneurs out there, I get calls from all over the country, thanks to podcasts and streams like this, um, asking me, is there a place like yours in Indiana? Is there a place like
Mhm.
yours in Florida? Bahamas, I got a call. I've got emails from Australia. There is a demand out there for this.
Yeah,
It's not like everyone wants to put their mom in, eat ice cream, watch TV until she dies, kind of thing.
yeah,
So you can you can definitely create a market. And I just had a conversation with a pharmacist, and he was saying, "Oh, I visited some other assisted living homes. It's the summer lull. It's hard to find people during the summer to move into your home." And he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm totally full and have more people calling me." So
yeah,
it's not like you're going to take a huge risk here. You got a very small market. You're competing against me, and if you're in another state, you're not competing against me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think it's a great business model, and it's something that what I really, more than just fill up my assisted living home, I want to get the message out of, you can do this like you're doing with your dad,
Mhm.
with your elderly parents, with your brothers, sisters, wife, husband, cousin, whatever, and never go into an assisted living home. My
Yeah.
ultimate goal is to bankrupt assisted living because everyone takes care of themselves at home and doesn't need it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of multi-generational homes. We actually have my nephew living with us now. He's in his 30s, and it's actually fantastic
Yeah.
because, it's just he's with his grandpa. They are close, and it's been a big help to me. And it's just working for everybody, especially with the economy the way it is. I think that it's really good for younger people to be at home. I know that may not be a popular opinion, as long as they're not just sitting around, gaming and eating Hot Pockets,
Right.
but contributing contributing as part of the household. I think it's really valuable, and I think that there are studies out there that show that it's healthier for everybody involved.
I'm sure.
Right? And it definitely takes some of the burden off of me, even just from, if I have to leave the house and running late or what, it's just better. We have a question in the Facebook, and I want to address this because you mentioned that this is something that people could be doing at home for their family members, which is what I'm doing with my dad. And we've seen, I think I think he's lost probably 20 pounds. He's definitely gone down in his waist size, and his blood sugars are going down. He's still in that pre-diabetic range, but definitely trending down, and blood pressure is better. And my listeners know that I have been working with him over the last 3 years to get him off of all prescription drugs, and been working with his doctors on that. So, it's a process, but the important thing with him is that, I have the buy-in because we've talked about the benefits of this type of lifestyle for him, just from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint. And I do see a lot of improvements with him. And I wanted to mention too that for you talked about getting parents on the protocol, getting family members. I'm a big advocate of putting your own oxygen mask on first. And so really want to encourage my listeners to think about this. Uh, a lot of people, especially my women here, you're busy taking care of everybody else, and really think about taking care of you, and looking seriously at this protocol, at the carnivore protocol, at the ketovore, whatever works for you. I've heard so many success stories from this. And so Maria is asking, sorry, Denise is asking, where do we find the protocol? And you
Okay.
mentioned that you work with Maria Emmerich, but there are several carnivore doctors that I'm a fan of, and I think you too. But where are you getting most of your resources?
Well, I'd just like to say, as an incentive for this, I've never moved someone into my home that was on a low carb diet. Okay. So almost everyone I move in ate terribly. So
Before they got there.
before they got there. And
Okay.
the other thing to think about is there is a hereditary component to dementia. So if you see your mom or dad have it, you're probably at heightened risk. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but it might be worth looking into this early. Third thing I want to mention is, like you said about caregivers, I have people come to my home, families, break down and cry the first time they meet me because they haven't had any sleep. They have eating horribly because they don't have time. They're trying to balance their kids and taking care of their elderly parent. It's a tremendous struggle. I mean, the reason
Yeah.
I'm in business is because it's so hard. And like I completely agree. Take care of yourself. You can put people in an assisted living home for a week or two, so you can just take a break, go on a vacation, something. But make sure you're taking care of yourself, eating well, and that multi-generation home. If you can do that, everyone can benefit from eating a good diet.
Yeah.
Maria Emmerich's a great source. Sean Baker is a great source. Ken Berry, you can just, YouTube search carnivore diet, find some great people. The dementia protocol, Dr. Bredesen has a company called Apollo Health. I think it's apollohealth.io. It might be apollohealth.com. The Mind for All Seasons guys, their website is amindforallseasons.com.
Okay.
And you just call them up, tell them you heard about me. They know me extremely well, and they do tremendous work and are extremely passionate about it.
Exciting.
The exercise equipment we use is called an X3. It's a bunch of bands, a weight bar, and a plate, and I can tell you from years of weightlifting, I get much more out of that than I ever did weightlifting, and it's extremely kind on your joints. You just don't get the injuries you get weightlifting. You can do it at home. You can pack it in a suitcase and take it with you on the road. Do it in your hotel room on vacation. It's just a wonderful device. I'm trying to think what else. We use Maria's cookbooks a lot, and just one thing you mentioned about like fat and everything. When I say we don't, there's diets we don't put a lot of fat in. That's because mostly the person has a lot of fat on their body. So
Mhm.
if Maria has a process called protein sparing modified fasting
I've heard of that, yeah.
protocol that basically has you eat very lean meats, very little fat, because your body will draw the fat out. The fat is extremely important, like you said, for the myelin sheath. It's also dementia is also known as type 3 diabetes because there's inflammation and insulin resistance in your brain. Well, that
Mhm.
means your brain can't burn the glucose like a normal healthy brain can. However, it can burn something called ketones, which is the origin of the ketogenic diet. When you don't eat carbs, your body runs on ketones that it pulls
Yeah.
from fat. You have to have fat to make ketones. And those ketones power up the mitochondria in your brain and help start healing it. And like you said, opening up new pathways and things like that that glucose just can't do in a brain that's inflamed and insulin resistant. So fat is very important. I don't want to de-emphasize that. It's just where are you getting it from your diet or from your body?
Mhm. Mhm.
So either
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
you need the fat. But if you have a lot of fat in your body, you're not doing yourself any favors by putting more fat in your body.
Mhm. Mhm. And, so I think that, it's like I said, it's just really amazing, that we're seeing people being able to make these, especially mental changes, just by retraining their body to use different fuel, right?
Mm.
Because people who are addicted to sugars and starches and carbs, their brain is constantly living off of the the carbs, and it's also highly inflamed. And so changing that is changing the fuel source for the brain and then also reducing that inflammation. That's the simplistic description of it. But these doctors are really good at explaining. And so I do encourage everybody to look up the A Mind for All Seasons, look up Dr. Dale Bredesen. How do you spell Bredesen?
It's all
B
E's. Bredesen.
Okay, all right, Bredesen, and then the X3 exercise equipment.
Yep.
And, the other thing I will say too is just take it one day at a time, everybody. It's if you're looking at making a change, think about really your why, but also make a plan and get into a support group. All of these carnivore doctors have different groups that they offer and different little memberships and things like that that I think are very helpful because it's really a different it's a different mindset, and there's a lot of retraining that takes place of your way of thinking about food, especially because media and big food have done such a good job of convincing us that things are a certain way. And my rule of thumb these days is, if the people in positions of authority are telling you that something is bad for you, it's most likely good for you. And if they're telling you that you need it, you most likely should run the other way. Um, especially if
Yeah, I have
three-letter agency.
I have people come back from the hospital with, the hospital gave them a handout on this is what you should
Yeah.
eat. And I look through it and go, yeah, we're not going
Yeah.
to do
Yeah,
that here.
exactly.
If they insist and they say the doctor ordered it, I have to follow it by the Department of Health. Okay, I will. But
Yeah.
I try to tell them this General Mills coming up with your diet recommendations.
Right, exactly. And I know Dr. Ken Berry has been in a sort of a back and forth with the American Diabetes Association. He's
Oh
actually
yeah,
challenged them to debate some of these things because of the recommendations they're giving. I hope this has been helpful to my listeners today. If you're coming back for the replay, especially on Facebook or Rumble, as always, we really want you to leave a comment. If you have questions specifically for Hal, what's the best way for them to reach you on social media or email, or tell us the best way to reach you.
sure. Well, you gave out my Twitter handle. That's a great way.
Yep.
I do respond to direct messages, as I
At,
did with
at
you,
Hal Cranmer.
right?
Okay.
If you go to a Paradise for Parents Assisted Living on Facebook, that's our business page. We'll post
Okay.
fun stuff going on there. And then Instagram, it's Assisted Living Hal Cranmer. And then if you want to email me, it's hal@paradiseforparents.com. I'll try to get to your email. I get a lot of junk, and I have a newsletter I send out 3 times a week of stuff we're doing or new things I'm finding out about. And if you go to bringmemoryback.com, you can sign up for that newsletter. I have a handout that you can download at that website of here's some things you can do to help avoid or mitigate the dementia that we do that are inexpensive changes you can make in your home.
Excellent. This has been great. And we are going to, I want to remind my listeners of a couple things before we sign off. Again, this is Hal Cranmer, A Paradise for Parents. He's based in Arizona. He has assisted living facilities that are improving people's lives and helping them to thrive rather than just waste away in their old age. And so this is very exciting, encouraging, inspiring. And so please let us know in the comments when you come back for replay. Just let us know your thoughts. Let us know your situation, how it's like, what it's like where you are. What are some takeaways that you got from this? And again, reach out to Hal if you want to. And as always, I want to ask you to stick around for just a minute and hear about some of our affiliate partners here at Mary Grace Media. The way that we are able to bring you this content is that when you participate and make a purchase from our affiliate partners, we do get a commission, and it helps us keep the show going, and we can bring you great content. And speaking of great content, I have an amazing show coming up on Saturday with our good friend Praying Medic. That's at 1 o'clock Eastern. And then I also have a mystery guest on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. This is somebody that many of you know, a very, very well-known figure from Hollywood. One of the good ones. And so I definitely want you to mark your calendars, 1 p.m. Eastern, this coming Sunday. We will have this guest live on air with us. Hang out, everybody, here for just a minute while we go and take a listen to some of our affiliate partners. Let me pull this up. I don't have it queued up. So we're going to let, hold on. Oh, they changed everything. You know, just when you think you have the system down, the people who run the show change the system. That's what happens a lot. Okay, here we go. So, Hal, if you don't mind hanging out for just a second, we're just going to run this and then we'll be back, or we're going to sign off. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, synapse.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. And you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze-dried and it's shelf-stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show.